Hey everybody, Griffinlobster. Long time no face. Well, it's that time of year again where I look back and talk about my favorite games of the last year. And, I love talking about games, and you guys apparently inexplicably love hearing me talk at length about games. So, what you are in for, dear viewers, is a series of four relatively unfunny, uncut, raw videos of me just talking about games because I love talking about games. And, you know, 2012, pretty great year for games. I wouldn't say it's as good as 2011 was, or maybe even the 2 years before that, but it was a very important year for games, at least personally, because I felt that a lot of the mainstream AAA titles plowed the same ground as before. There were a lot of sequels. It was hard to find a new IP this year, to find a game without a number at the end of it. And the fact that they sort of played it safe a little bit helped me see that there were a few shining standouts, both retail and downloadable formats, that were countercultural and made me recalibrate what I find personally enjoyable about gaming. And, as we grow older, our tastes change, and I think this year sort of had that effect on me. And that's going to reflect in this list. And so, basically, let's just get right into it. Going to go ahead and throw out three things right off the bat. First of all, I didn't play every game this year, regrettably, and so not all of them have equal chance of being on this list. Specific ones that are noteworthy exclusions. I didn't play XCOM Enemy Unknown. I know everybody freaking loved that game, but I just haven't really been into RTSs in a long time, and I know a thing that people constantly said in their reviews was, "Oh, if you don't like RTSs, you still have to check out this game. It's a great game. It changes the formula up," and I just I was just playing it safe, I guess. I just didn't feel like playing that. So, regrettably, I didn't. And you can hate me if you want, but I feel like I'm pretty in tune with my tastes. Second, oh boy, this one is probably my most regrettable one. Is I didn't play Far Cry 3, and I know that was on a lot of people's year-end lists. And I'm sure I would have loved that game, but I just did not have enough time. I mean, sure, I could have started playing it today and done this series in mid to late March, because I heard that game's huge. And, but then the videos wouldn't have been as relevant as they are. And they already aren't very relevant. We're in late February here. People are talking about 2013. Heck, the PS4 was just announced yesterday. So people aren't caring so much about 2012 anymore. But, yeah, didn't play that one. I didn't play Call of Duty Black Ops 2 for obvious reasons. And I also didn't play New Super Mario Bros. U because I don't have a Wii U, because I like video games. I may pick up that game/system eventually, but just not now. And I'm sure there are other exclusions. And if my game I picked, a game that you really really like, doesn't come up in my list, it's not the end of the world. It's just my tastes. And remember, this is just my opinion. That's the second thing I want to say. This is just my opinion, so don't take it super personally. And third, I am going to be breaking a rule that previously I had set, which was I'm going to be including downloadable titles this year, because there were about 3 or 4 downloadable games I just could not ignore. This year it was impossible for me to be honest and come up with 10 retail games that really blew me away. And this year, I think more than any other year beforehand, at least I've experienced, there were some really strong cases to be made for downloadable titles. And, I just had to put them on this list. It would be a complete injustice not to put them on this list. Maybe 2 or 3 specifically. And so, I'm not going to be able to hold up anything for those games. But maybe I'll show a little bit of game footage or something. I don't know. But anyway, let's just get right into the list. We're going to start like I did last year with a couple honorable mentions, and then we'll do number 10, and then next video we'll do 9 through 7. Okay, so the first honorable mention goes to Resident Evil Revelations, or Resident Evil Revelatons, if the spine is to be believed, for the Nintendo 3DS. A lot of people had a lot of disparaging things to say about the Resident Evil franchise this year, and I think for those who really love the tried and true Resident Evil formula, that this is your game. This was the first one that came out in the year, and it was definitely the one that felt most like a survival horror game to me. It's hard for games to scare me really these days. Very few games fill me with dread. But this one had some seriously intense moments. Really played towards its strengths in that regard. Whereas the other two Resident Evil games, I didn't play the second one. I even forget what it was called. It was like Umbrella Chronicles or some toss. I don't remember it. I didn't play it. It got terrible reviews. And I did play Resident Evil 6, and that's by a comfortable margin the most divisive entry in the main series to date. And more on that game later. Wink. But Resident Evil Revelations, it's just classic survival horror stuff. You're stuck in this boat, at least for most of the game. There's also parts where you're in like this wintry wasteland. And, it gets that sense of claustrophobia that's really effective. The monsters are creepy and imposing. And, a couple really intense moments I just want to throw out there. For example, you're stuck in this room relatively early on in the game with a monster, and you have no weapons, and you have to get out before it kills you. You have to find a way to do it harm without having any weapons to speak of at all. And it's pretty intense. And then there's another part where you're basically incapacitated on the ground, and these infected zombie evil dogs, good cornerstone of the franchise, just start swarming you. And man, I used up almost all of my ammo, and I had been conserving it fairly substantially. So, boy, that was pretty intense. And so, again, it's a really, really good thriller of a game. And I think for the Nintendo 3DS, that's important. It's important that it can translate the first-person shooter, or at least a third-person shooter perspective, well onto the 3DS. And while I don't think it's my favorite 3DS game, I do think it's the best 3DS game that came out this year. And if you have the system and you're looking for a way to use it like I always am, this game's for you, definitely. But, this fell off the list mostly because I just kind of haven't been into handheld gaming recently. And I never finished it, but one day I'll finish it. Next honorable mention, another game I didn't finish, Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. Man, maybe if there was like an entire extra month in the year, I could have finished this game up, but boy, there was just too much game here for me to swallow. And maybe it's because it wasn't exciting enough early on enough, but I played it for 8 to 10 hours and I put it down. I never picked it back up again, which is a shame because I think if I had put more effort into it, I probably could have loved this game and it could have made it onto this list. I remember it being sold to me as a Fable done right, which, in addition to being pretty funny, is also kind of true. It's a relatively unserious approach to the genre of Western action RPG. Like Fable, it's third person, and you can choose between a wide variety of weapons and play styles. And it's functional and it's effective, and there's lots to do. You can smith your own weapons here. You can enchant weapons. It's sort of like if Skyrim and Fable had like a baby, and that would be this game. And that's the best way I can describe it to you. I finished one of the quest lines, and I found it enjoyable, but maybe not as gripping as maybe I just had my expectations set too high by Skyrim, and I'm ruined. But, whereas the Fable series felt sort of fakely non-linear, it was still pretty linear game. You can only go to one place after another place. This game was a definitive open world, and it felt large, and it had really lush, beautiful graphics. Not necessarily realistic graphics, but lush and beautiful. And I think anyone who's looking for an action RPG, or at least a substantial time sink, should give this game a look-see. I'm not sure a lot of people played it, but I think, given the right opportunity, I think just about anybody could like this game. So, Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. Another 3DS game, again off the list, mostly because it's a handheld game, and I just haven't been into handheld games very recently, is Paper Mario Sticker Star. I would put this as the best way I can qualify this game is a happy medium between Super Paper Mario and like the original Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door. It's not as good as those first two games. I would still love just a regular Paper Mario game. But I don't know if Nintendo's uninterested in that formula or what. But, the Sticker Star, it's a little bit more linear than the earlier Paper Mario series. I mean, obviously the earlier Paper Mario games were still pretty linear, but this one's pointedly so. You actually select levels and you can beat the levels. But it's not a straight up platformer like Super Paper Mario. With, um, there's actual battle screens, but there's no partner. There's no like special points. You just have HP. It's very, very stripped down to its bones, practically. And I think maybe at the end of the day, that's why it didn't quite make it onto the list. I liked the sticker mechanic, and the way it played out in battles was fun, but I just found it a little maybe too simple, a little too non-engaging, and I think it just wore thin after like the first three worlds. I felt like I'd seen most of what the game could have to offer. You can use, basically in battle, you use these stickers. You have like jump stickers, hammer stickers, and bunches of other ones that have different effects. And, it was fun at first, but I think it just wore a little thin after a while. And I feel like this major missed opportunity here was the boss battles, which is basically just a big game of trial and error because there are these special stickers in the game, and the bosses are so incredibly overpowered that you basically have to figure out what is their weakness, the one sticker that they're incredibly weak to, and use it at the right time. And I just did not like that at all, really. I pretty much I just used a guide. I wasn't going to sit on my 3DS fighting the same boss 7 times, or more than that, because there are an insane amount of stickers in this game. But for someone who's looking for a simple RPG and another way to use their 3DS, this is worth a look-see. And my last honorable mention goes to Sound Shapes, which was a downloadable game for PS Vita, which I obviously don't have, so I got it for the PS3. And it's really a novel combination of a platformer with a music game. There are these little collectibles in the world, and as you pick them up, it adds another instrument to the soundtrack. And basically everything, all the obstacles, everything on the screen at any given point in time, other than your character specifically, either creates music or is a function of the music being created. Actually, it's the same thing. So you know how a character is going to move based on the music. You know how this platform is going to react based on the music. And a lot of the tunes here are just incredibly enjoyable, fun little tunes. My favorites were Beck's tunes at the end. And basically, to anybody looking for just something different, something truly unique, they got to check it out. I found it very endearing, and even emotionally significant, which is weird to say for a game that's so bare bones and simple. But you got to check out Sound Shapes. And that's it for the honorable mentions. Now onto the actual list. Number 10. Resident Evil 6. Now, before everyone goes nuts with how much they hate this game, let me just say that I think the main reason a lot of people dislike this game is because it's not a survival horror game, and it's not. And admittedly, I had the advantage going into it. How sometimes you get overhyped for a game. I was thankfully underhyped for Resident Evil 6. I saw all the negative reviews. I saw like the 2s out of 10 that it got, which is a little ridiculous in my opinion. If you're going to give a game a 2 out of 10, it better be like unplayable. This wasn't unplayable. It's stupidly written. It has really, really dumb explosion-based Michael Bay moments. It has a plot that you could plot with holes that you could drive a semi through. But at the end of the day, I just had a crazy amount of fun with it. I mean, I played it all the way to its end, which is something I can't even say about Resident Evil 5. I didn't even play. I still haven't beat Resident Evil 5 all the way to the end. But Resident Evil 6, I don't know if it was just the spectacle of it, maybe because I just felt like I was playing this B action movie with stupid dialogue and these knuckle-brained characters. Uh, normally I would hate a game for stuff like that. That's one of the main reasons I don't like, or at least not a huge rabid fan like everyone else is of the Gears of War series. But maybe it's because that's Japanese and they don't get it. But I just had fun with this game. I just went into it, I with lowered expectations and came out with a smile on my face. The game is over long, and I'm not sure the action is very great. And the parts of the game that basically how it goes, there are these intersecting storylines with all these different characters, 4 different campaigns actually, which admittedly is a little exhausting in terms of length. And there are some parts that you have to play twice. Once is one character and once is another character if you want to basically see all of the game. And I'm not sure if those parts deserved to be played twice. I'm not sure if they were good enough to be played twice. But I played Chris's campaign first because I heard it was the worst, and it is. It's basically just constant gun play with these crazy lunatics you have to fight. And then I did Jake's, which was an interesting concept. It's kind of like you're being chased by this nemesis type character, and I thought it was okay. And then I did Leon's, which was by far my favorite. It felt the most like a survival horror game. Still not scary, like at all, or maybe even thrilling. They were very, very artificially thrilling. But if you're just looking for like some stupid fun, uh, I couldn't hate this game. And I think that the people who really had serious vitriol were just angry that Capcom abandoned they abandoned their survival horror roots. And admittedly, it's a little sad that a genre that doesn't get as much attention as the action genre certainly does has lost another contender in the battle for its relevancy. um, and admittedly, that's a sad thing. But I can't dock this game for being unfun because I just had a blast. So you know what? Hate me if you want. Call me an idiot if you want. I enjoyed Resident Evil 6. It's number 10 on my list. And that's it for part 1. It was a super long video. Did you watch the whole thing? Really? So anyway, stick around for part 2. Thanks for watching.